Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Friday, July 11th. We will continue to see hotter and drier conditions through the weekend into early next week across the Great Basin, with temperatures increasing to around 5 to 8 degrees above normal. We'll also have some breezy winds today over parts of the higher terrain of central Utah, and also a few isolated thunderstorms in western Wyoming. Otherwise, we may still see some breezy winds over parts of central and southern Utah on Saturday, with winds decreasing Sunday and again increasing temperatures. Can't rule out a few isolated storms developing in some of the higher terrain this weekend as temperatures heat up, but any activity through the weekend should be really isolated. No precipitation or lightning over the last 24 hours. And there was a reported 18 new fires for over 4,400 acres across the Great Basin, with large fire growth over 28,000 acres, most of which occurred on the Gothic Fire in southern Nevada. Over the last 7 to 14 days, the only significant precipitation we've seen has been up north across Idaho with the system last week. Otherwise, very dry conditions over western and southern areas of the Great Basin, aside from some thunderstorms popping up at times over the last couple of weeks. The ERC percentile point map shows the conditions well, with ERCs have jumped recently to over the 90th or 97th percentile over much of the southern half to 2/3 of the Great Basin. ERCs are still not as high up north where we had the recent moisture, but have been increasing, and we are seeing pockets of ERCs above the 80th percentile. Looking at some of our 100-hour fuel moistures in areas that we've seen recent large fires, both in southwest Idaho and over eastern Utah, you can see 100-hour fuel moistures are well below normal in many areas of Utah and near record minimums, or will be approaching record minimums in the next 5 days with the hotter weather. Further north, fuel moistures are not quite as low, so fires haven't gotten too out of control up across parts of Idaho yet, but they will be dropping with the hotter and drier conditions. The satellite loop from this morning shows generally clear skies with the exception of the cloud cover in parts of northwest and western Wyoming. Otherwise, hazy skies and smoke conditions are expected across many areas of Nevada and into Utah, with both California fires and smoke drifting to the east, and also with the fires over southern areas of the Great Basin. And you can see the smoke forecast for this afternoon. Generally, we'll see the smokiest conditions over southern areas near our large fires, but also hazy conditions further north, and then we will continue those conditions on Saturday as well. As we move through the day today, we will continue to see that ridge build across the west with generally drier conditions and northwest flow. We do have an area of low pressure moving by the northern Rockies, so again, that's what will trigger a few thunderstorms over western Wyoming, but very isolated. And you can see from the significant fire potential will remain low to moderate across the region. Any lightning in Colorado is expected to be well east of our border. Winds today, again, we'll see those breezy northwest winds over parts of the mountains of central Utah, most of those gusts in the low to mid 20s. We will see dry conditions in much of the Great Basin, but the lowest relative humidity in the single digits will be across the southern tier. Further north, we'll see relative humidity in the teens or above 20%. Temperatures will continue to warm up. We'll see highs in the upper 90s over western areas of the Great Basin and in the low 90s in the north and eastern areas. Thunderstorm potential, again, very isolated today, but could see some over western Wyoming, maybe even some cumulus or a strike or two in the Uintas or even in the Central Sierra, but for the most part, very isolated and dry conditions are expected. As we move into Saturday, the ridge continues to build with, again, very dry conditions and generally moderate fire potential. Winds on Saturday will still be breezy with those northwest winds over central and southern Utah, so certainly could impact some of our large fires in those areas. But again, the gusts might be a little bit weaker than what we'll see today, mostly in the 20 to 25 mile per hour range, but it will still be somewhat breezy over the eastern side of the Great Basin. Otherwise, very light winds on the western areas, and we will continue to see the relative humidity drop across the region, with nearly all areas below 15% across Nevada, Utah, and even into southern Idaho, and many areas in the single digits for Nevada and Utah. Temperatures continue to warm. Saturday through Monday will probably be some of our hottest days, where we'll see areas over western Nevada reach over 100 degrees, and we'll see areas even up north in Idaho reach the upper 90s. Thunderstorm potential, again, very minimal. We'll probably see some cumulus buildups, but very outside potential of any lightning strikes. On Sunday, the ridge continues to dominate with overall moderate fire potential. Winds will be on the decrease across many areas, but we could see some cumulus buildups that even produce some outflow winds over parts of Nevada or Utah, even in the absence of any lightning, just with the very dry conditions. We'll see widespread single-digit relative humidity and even into southern and eastern Idaho into the low teens. May see some breezy northwest winds in Idaho on Sunday, but most of those gusts in the teens to around 20 miles per hour. Sunday, again, temperatures continue to heat up. We'll see many areas in the north and west over 100 degrees, and areas in the east now in the mid to upper 90s. Thunderstorm potential starts to get a little bit better on Sunday. We may see enough instability with the heat for some thunderstorms to pop over parts of northeast Utah, maybe even on the west side as well, but any coverage is certainly expected to be very isolated going through the weekend. You can see that on the 3-day total precipitation, a couple of pin drops of precipitation possible if we see some of those isolated storms, otherwise dry conditions. Then going into next week, we start to see an area of low pressure drop into the northern Rockies. So we will see winds pick up a bit, a generally moderate fire potential. We don't have any high risk at this time. This could bring some additional instability and enough moisture in place to get more isolated storms starting to pop over the higher terrain of Nevada or Utah. So this will be something to watch going into the early part of next week, because these thunderstorms would definitely be on the drier side, only producing some light pin drops of precipitation. The trough continues to drop south and east on Tuesday, so we'll be continuing to watch additional increases in thunderstorm coverage potential for Utah and even parts of northern or eastern Nevada, along with possibly some increased winds in the north. And then that continues into Wednesday as well. So definitely some potential for high risk for wind or thunderstorms going into next week, but again, being so far out and confidence being on the lower side, holding off on any high risk at this time, but we will be very hot and dry prior to next week. And then on Thursday, the ridge starts to rebuild yet again. No significant moisture coming up from the south during the next 7 days. And you can see that on the 7-day total precip. Anything we do see with thunderstorms will be very light and definitely lightning on the drier side, so we'll continue to watch that. The 8 to 14-day outlook from July 18th through the 24th shows above normal temperatures and drier conditions for much of the Great Basin. It does look like the next push of moisture from the southwest will start to move into southern areas of Utah, potentially late next week or into next weekend. So maybe the early part of this 8 to 14-day period, July 19th or 20th or so. Prior to that, no significant moisture expected across the Great Basin. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.